I sat, alone inside the school bus in my usual seat, playing mobile game on my cell phone. Nobody ever sat with me in bus, unless there was no other seat left, and their legs were aching tired. If you knew me, you would probably not want to be friends with me either. I never liked to go out, I hated crowds, and I hated teamwork. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. Well, I think it's stupid to think about future. So, there I was, a nobody, in this huge planet full of talented humans. My mom told me I am wasting time, my conscience told me I'm wasting time, but I didn't find anything else to do with my time, so I always, calmly, ignored their warnings. I studied in an all-girls school. I didn't like my school. I had no friends, not a single friend. Well, I did talk to my batchmates when it came to borrowing notes, but even that was like once in a pink moon stuff. What they talked about never really interested me. Makeup, jewelry, nice clothes, guys, I never understood the other girls' craze for such things, and I probably never will. They think I'm dull and rude, but that's okay. I don't think very highly of them either. I like being left alone, so they leave me alone. It's mutual. Shanvi? The teacher suddenly called. Yes, that was my name, the old man called. My dad was Sri Lanka, so I had an Sri Lanka name. I looked up at his old wrinkly face. Mrs. Steve Smith wants you at the drama club meeting right now, he informed me, raised an eyebrow at him. Drama? I said, stressing the word as hard as I could. He sighed. Yes. What a bite, she said under my breath. I didn't like drama. I didn't like Mrs. Steve Smith. She would always tell me I needed to mend my ways. And I never understood why. He sighed. Yes. What a bitch. I said under my breath. I didn't like drama. I didn't like Mrs. Steve Smith. She would always tell me I needed to mend my ways. And I never understood why. Come sit down, Shanvi, she purred when she saw me. I obeyed. And the meeting resumed. So as I was saying, the play we're performing this time is Jack and Gabriella, she said, the last 3 words slowly, stressing every syllable. Duh, I cried out softly. Few heads near me turned. I didn't bother to check who they were, and Shanvi, she said, startling me as she announced my name, shall play the part of Jack. All heads turned to me. I gulped. It felt sick. There was no way I was going to do it. The only reason I joined drama club was because I sucked at everything else. But that seriously doesn't mean I don't suck at this. Mrs. Steve Smith went on about her plans for the annual function, the way the stage was to be decorated, the music, the songs, and the dialogues. She handed each one of us a draft of the play we were going to perform. It had all the dialogues and scene changes well written on it. As all the other girls flipped through it excitedly, I shut it and made up my mind to tell Mrs. Steve Smith I won't do it. Are you Shanvi? A soft voice called. I turned around and saw her. Gabriella. She was fair, very fair, with golden curly hair that reached below her shoulders. She had deep blue eyes that twinkled, and pink lips that glistened. She was dressed in a short white frock that ended above her knees. Her arms and legs were so beautiful, I wished I could just touch them once. Shanvi? She said again, waking me up from my fantasies. Yeah, that's me, I said. I offered her my hand and she shook it. Her touch felt smooth. I'm Sanaya, she said. I'm a year junior to you. I play Gabriella. I nodded. I loved her name. I loved her voice. I loved the way she said her name, and the way her pink lips moved when she said it. Mrs. Steve Smith says we have to play majority part of the play. And, I really want to do this well. I nodded again. Suddenly I too wanted to do this really well. So you up for it, right? Can we practice extra time? For sure we can. I said, a little too soon maybe. You can come to my place after school, if you are free. We'll practice in my room. She smiled when I said that. She had beautiful teeth, and an even more beautiful smile. See you then, she said. I smiled back, widely enough to make myself look like an idiot. Practice starts tomorrow, Shanvi, Mrs. Steve Smith purred again as I was leaving. I nodded and smiled at her. The bickering old lady finally did something good to my life by being a part of it. Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this, for saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy Palmer's kiss. It was Anaya saying her lines. I watched her as she spoke with so much passion, I felt almost transported into the story. She looked at me, and it took me a while to realize that it was my turn to say, my lines have not saints' flips, I mean, lips, and holy Palmer's too? I said. No, I blabbered. I didn't understand the meaning of this shit, and it sounded even worse when I said it. I looked at Mrs. Steve Smith, who shook her head sadly, and then signaled Sanaya to continue. Pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer, she said, then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do, they pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair, semicolon. Somehow, the utterance of the word lips, again and again made me nervous. I still didn't have the faintest idea what it all meant. Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake, she said, then move not, while my prayers effect ye take. Thus from my, lips, by yours, my sin is, purged. I did not know what was so funny when I said it, but I did sense a soft giggle rise in the crowd. I looked around and felt miserable. Why? Couldn't I become invisible for a few seconds? Or why didn't some dinosaur come in and gobble me up right then? Shanvi, dear, you surely need practice, Mrs. Steve Smith cried out and laughed like a stupid hyena. Oh my, what will I do with you? I wanted to cry and yell out. They had no right to laugh at me like that. I hated being laughed at. And I hated the entire drama club. I hated Mrs. Steve Smith. I hated Sanaya. I crushed my paper in my hand, threw it on the face of the stupid-looking girl with pimples sitting on my right, and left the room. I sensed the laughter dimming in the room as I left. But I didn't turn back to look. It was over for me. I went out into the playground and sat down under the shade of a tree, hoping to remain invisible in the blackness. I watched some girls playing basketball some distance away and concentrated on the game to forget about drama and the stupid dramatists. A lonely bird chirped on a branch of the tree, singing away its miseries all alone. As if its miseries were more than me. Shanvi, a voice called. I didn't budge a muscle, hoping the person would go away. Whoever she was, Shanvi, we're sorry, she said. It was Sanaya. We didn't mean to hurt you. I looked away and stayed mum. I wished she would go away. I seriously needed some quiet time with myself, or with someone who didn't irritate me, or some dumb who didn't talk, or a total stranger. She didn't fulfill any of the criteria, nor did that dim-witted bird crying on my tree. It's hurt, Sanaya said suddenly. I gave her a questioning look. That bird, it has hurt its swing. she said, and went up to it. She took the bird into her hands. It panicked for a few seconds, and tried to wriggle out of her grip, but she managed to coax it by gently rubbing its head. Look at it swing. She showed me the left wing of the bird. I guess she had got herself trapped in a thorny bush or something. Be careful, it might SHT in your hands, I told her. I wasn't fond of birds anyway. She laughed at my comment. Shanvi, it's such a pretty little bird, she said. I looked at it. I didn't know what that bird was called and it looked dull in its black and brown feathers. That's why I say I never understand the other girls. I took out my phone and started playing mobile game again, raising the sound level to high. The bird in her hands started panicking. Shanvi, you're scaring it, she almost yelled at me. Well, I don't care. I like to be alone. So why can't you just behave like the other girls and leave me alone? What's your problem? I said angrily. She was silent. It felt good to yell at her and tell her I don't need her. I had felt deeply betrayed when she had joined the others to laugh at me. I was only making it even. I watched her silent face and her eyes that stared fixedly at mine. The whole world seemed still and silent, except the sound of our breaths. I looked at her slightly parted lips, her bosom heaving up and down, and her fair arms, and the bird in her hands that she was clutching a bit too tightly now. You're killing it! ! Enter your text here. ! I cried out. She got a shock and loosened her grip on the little bird. Oh my dear, I'm so sorry, she said. Are you okay? Are you hurt? She asked the bird. And that's why I say I do not understand girls. Is it alive? I asked casually. Yeah, it is. She sat down cross-legged, playing with the bird. Look at its eyes, Shanvi. They are so lovely, she said, holding out the bird so I could look at its eyes. Big black eyes? I had them too. I said nothing and kept fiddling with my cell phone. Shanvi, we're really very sorry. Would you like to come up to my home tonight? You and I could practice together and I could teach you. Her words hit my heart like Cupid's arrow. She had invited me to her house. Just me and her. I felt special at once. Sure, I said and looked into her blue eyes. She smiled. I smiled back stupidly. I couldn't believe I had fallen into the trap so easily. I'll see you then, she said and left. She left, but her smell lingered on for some time longer. I breathed it in and smiled to myself. I seem to have fallen in love with it. Shanvi, you're late for dinner. Where are you? Mom called from downstairs. I was in call with Sanaya. Coming, Mom. I yelled back, disconnecting the phone. Well, let me tell you about this beautifully interesting creature that's my mom. My parents' marriage was the funniest circus I ever heard of. My mom was white, a New Yorker, and she was pregnant with me at the age of 22, when my father was around 25.